Morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, I believe, second week of March, 2021. We got a little throw grabbers for you today. I'm kind of excited about that. We're just going to do 6 of them. I figure that's enough to keep people's attention. Yesterday, Ken McAuliffe, my good friend from New York, who has the jazz page, Jazz Vinyl Lovers, and also has a long writing career, interviewed a lot of the greats. Very knowledgeable guy. Responded to someone who commented on one video I shared with this channel a good 6 months ago about race and how I feel race is a part of the expression. And this guy was kind of indignant about it, and Ken kind of posted some comments, and we got a lot of great feedback on it yesterday in his group. I just want to address it myself a little bit here. I've said it umpteen times. White cats can play jazz. White cats were financing and were often innovating in big parts of the whole process. What the distinction is, when you close your eyes and feel what someone's playing, when you feel desperation, when you feel anxiety, when you feel tension, aggression, anger, intensity, more often than not, that's going to be a black guy playing that horn. That's the difference. Okay? It's not that white guys can't play. It's not that white cats weren't a part of this music the whole time. It's when you stop thinking and stop looking, trying to read and go, oh, this guy's brilliant because in this, none of that matters. It's close your eyes and just feel and listen to what this player's expressing. And when you hear tension, when you hear aggression, when you hear darkness, for my ears, these are the sounds I perceive when I listen to any kind of music. You know what I mean? Bob Marley's much more positive than Peter Tosh, and he's got lyrics informing me of that. Jazz musicians are also expressing their personalities, their viewpoints on the world. And anyone who thinks they're just going there to play music doesn't understand why a musician does anything he does. It's therapy for all of us, white cats included. It's just the white cat's problems usually don't go much deeper than drugs, alcohol, women. And once in a while, money problems. It's a whole lot different than I might get shot today, hung today, arrested today, incarcerated for unjust reasons today, received no justice today, the stress of my children, my wife, there's so many more things that were pressuring the black musicians who took the blues and urbanized it. That's what jazz is. It's an urbanization of the blues. The blues is in the country with its washboards and its harmonicas and its 4-string guitars, because that's what was out in the country. In the cotton fields, you didn't have tubas and sousaphones and violins and harps. You know what I mean? You didn't even get a trombone. In the country, you got a banjo, a guitar. You made the blues is what you had around you. And it just comes out with whatever you can find. That's how necessity it is. Oh shit, I gotta get this off my chest. I'm gonna beat a washboard and my boy's gonna pluck a handmade bass and we're gonna get this off our shit. I mean, and in the process, have a good time. Armstrong, someone suggested, wasn't trying to be anything more than an entertainer, and I would argue he's one of the most important racial giants. He was one of the huge forces behind civil rights. There's no one that humanized the African American more than Mr. Armstrong. He was an ambassador for his people, showing not just my humanity being equal to you, but I had the potential to be greater than you. In part, and in no small part, because I am going to work that much harder, because my opportunities are that much less and my options are that much fewer. So for me to be recognized as a black jazz musician, I have to really be something special. Especially for a white audience to take notice, when there's plenty of white guys imitating and borrowing and ripping it off. And so it's not about saying white cats can't do it. It's just when you close your eyes and listen to it, if you're telling me you're hearing the same thing when you listen to a Lee Morgan our Blakey Jazz Messenger record, Wayne Shorter, with that intensity and that drive and that angst and that aggression. But the point of it all is to release it and resolve it. So by the end of it, it is somewhat entertainment, and it is somewhat fun, and you find a joy in that cathartic experience of venting your soul's experience into your instrument. Now, White Cat's capable of doing the exact same thing. It's just his desperation is less. So his necessity to release it isn't as strong. So we can play just as fast a tempo. We can kill it. But we're still playing a more light, bouncy, happy, joyous thing. Trying to be sounding what those Black Cats did. But we can only go as deep as our soul allows us to go. And so I might play some mean trumpet or trombone. But I'm still going to end up talking about, man, that woman sure pissed me off last night. But I'm going to come home and give her some of that sweet sugar, and she's going to give it to me because she owes me now. You know what I mean? It's just, Chet Baker could play, but he's talking to his addiction saying, sweet lady, I need to get my fix tonight. You know what I mean? You can feel what a guy, and you can't help but take a guy's life experience and layer that on top of what a guy's emoting and understand some of what a guy's longing and expressing. So the notion that white guys can't play jazz, I've never said it. I don't want to be misquoted. It's just black musicians feel different. And if you want to feel desperation, if you want to feel intensity, if you want to feel aggression, and if you close your eyes and listen to it and don't even know the color of who's playing, sometimes you just feel these bursts and these spats and these moments of attack where there's someone getting over the top of that mountain, finding a release and going, and screaming down the other side. And it's not that often that it's a white cat. White cats can do it. But there's less in their daily life that forces them to be there as often as a black man is in America. I've heard Charlie Mariano go deep. Where I was like, ooh, who that? That brother's not, what's not a brother? It's a white dude. White cats can do it. You know what I mean? White cats can get real serious and dark with it. But as great as Eminem is, he's always kind of tongue in his cheek, making fun of himself. Talented, super skilled, one of the greatest MCs ever. But his experience is one of a white trash American in Detroit who, while being an oppressed member of society and less privileged, still wasn't under the gun the same way black Americans were. It's the same in the jazz era. So that's just something I needed to, and I've said it before, but I feel like I need to reiterate it once in a while. And some people appreciate me saying it. Some people buck hard at what I say. I think my channel doesn't grow as well as some do sometimes because I'm so willing to say things that sometimes white Americans don't want to hear. But the history is the history. It shapes the art the way it shapes the art. And if you can't hear those pages of history being flipped as the decades of jazz unfolds, your worlds aren't connected. Because music's always been a reflection of the times it exists in. It can't be separated. See what I'm saying? And so, as these days and times unfold, that music's always going to be a direct reflection and impressed on by those times. And so, you can't separate the music of a people from what a people's circumstance was they were living in. The children of Israel didn't write the books of the Bible when they were on top of the world. They wrote that shit in oppression, in captivity. And if you look at the Bible, I wrote on Facebook yesterday, there is no King Ramses II. There's no second Nebuchadnezzar. There's no song of Caesar. You can't be a winning, powerful group of people and write art about freedom and expression of self and my determination to survive in spite of my odds. You just can't come from that place. You could be in Egypt and see the resilience of these Israelites in captivity and their resistance to oppression and even be inspired by that Israelite experience. But that don't mean you can start writing down, as an Egyptian, the same laws that Moses put down. And you ain't leading no group of people out into the wilderness. To lead those people in the wilderness, you have to have that experience. You have to be Moses and be in the rushes. See, I come from the church. And that's why this black experience is so powerful to me, because it so correlates to the oppression of the Israelites and how that allowed them to find what freedom was. centuries of oppression and occupation and slavery gave them these great things like the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. It's in having nothing that I can understand I don't need nothing. And there's freedom in that. Because you look at your captor and you see the weight that they bear. You see the load that they carry. The guilt, the shame, the sexual oppression, the control, the propaganda. The people who are in charge carry a great weight. And even though they oppress me, I look around at them and say, I don't really want to be what you are. That's not the path I want for myself. And so in that, you can find your own freedom and move out of the wilderness, and jazz will lead you there. And so when you praise the black man, it's because their music has so much more desperation in it. And it's got so much more desperation because of the history. It ain't got nothing to do with because they're black. And I said it umpteen times. Miles Davis is as dark as any brother, has less oppression than most, and his music reflects that. He's doing sketches in Spain. Don't misquote me. I never said white cats can't play. Some of my favorite jazz cats are white. Love me some Joe Puma. Love me some Stan Getz. Chet Baker on a good rainy day. Okay? See what I'm saying? Bill Evans came from alcoholic and abusive childhood. That brother's got some soul. No question about it. But now, we're going to move on. This is the power of a piano. I'm going to let this hammer down. Watch this. He finds a pocket there. Herman Foster. Okay, you ready? Watch how much you sound the piano. Ooh. See what I'm saying? It's minimal, percussive, dynamic. The music of today has no dynamic to it. There's no accentuation. It's a bar that repeats itself for 64 measures. The same 4 beats, same 4 measures, over and over and over again. And these guys can put a different attack, a different dynamic, a different accent, crescendo. It's fresh every measure. This Herman Foster track's called Yesterdays. I just loved his expressive, choppy, vibrant attack. When you play this loud, and again, I don't want this episode to get taken down, but when you hear this loud, it's amazing that the bass and drums are just kind of laying down a groove, little train track. And it's Herman Foster that's chopping and blocking and dynamically expressing this incredible amount of color. And only the piano and guitar can really do that. That same way with that much orchestral velocity and dynamic and range, because you can play so many notes at once and you can diminish and accentuate. There's so many different ways you can make a piano give color and life. And Herman Foster's a delight. He's mostly someone you're going to know through Lou Donaldson. He backs Lou Donaldson on a lot of his records in the late 50s, early 60s. Then he goes to Epic, makes a couple records as a leader. Then he makes a great record at Argo, which is a pretty tough record to find. But I've been really enjoying Herman Foster as of late. And so if you have a chance to grab any of his records, they're not that expensive. I would grab them. My second throw grabber today is this Nat Adderley record, Work Song, the great Bobby Timmons track. It's so brought to life here with such dynamics by Wes Montgomery, one of his few sessions as a sideman, actually. The great Bobby Timmons, Percy Heath, Sam Jones. Of course, Timmons wrote the track. Heath and Jones are just a fantastic bass drum combination. Like I said, Wes doesn't do a lot of side work, but he's a leader at Riverside at this point, and he does do some work with the Adderleys, in part because the Adderleys brought him over to Riverside. But listen to this. This just explodes. The bass, the drums, it's like a loop. Some cinematic orchestra, some Saint Germain, some DJ Shadow. And then Nat comes in with that bright, precise laser beam of a sound. Nat Adderley is one of the angriest brothers in jazz. You know, for all the coolness of his brother Julian, Cannonball, Nat's always aggressive. Nat's always kind of frustrated and fed up, it sounds like. Some of that just might be in his big brother's shadow, and so you've always got to kind of state your place and have people notice you. But it's sick. It's just a nasty riff that they pile it down. They just pile it down and let you come to it. And Nat just brings it. He does a lot of very percussive attack. He does some really cool double time, triple time things at times. He has this real ability to have these Lee Morgan-esque angry flashes of sound that just sound like he's vacating all kinds of his daily experience. You know, I've always been a Nat Adderley guy. I think he's very underrated. His early records on Emercy are some of the greatest late 50s, mid-50s, 57, 58 records that you can find for $10, $20. Those are great records. I feel the same way about Adderley's Julian's records on Emercy. They're actually great value. People don't really think they're important for some reason because they're Emercy, whatever. The covers are cool if they're not peeled. I even like the peel. It's kind of it's kind of the Emercy thing at this point. There's some Wes. And I've always said how guitar is going to have a little bit less attack, a little bit less aggression. And Wes is kind of a cool cat. You know, he's from Indiana, but he spent enough time on the West Coast. Wes never comes across to me as too angry or uptight. You know, so the whole texture of the song feels now. It just shifts, but there's still that great it's fantastic. That Adderley track, of course, was called Pretty Memory, track 2 on that record. It's not the title track. I don't want you to think it's a work song. It's not. It's called Pretty Memory. But number 3 here, that's electric bass. See how thicker it is? Now this is a groove. You could go to the black church with this. You could do a hip hop track with this. You could do a down tempo breakbeat. Like there's a lot of things you could do with that riff. And fantastic horns here by, I remember Oliver Nelson. No, Red Holloway. But Benson here, he does some stuff that's pretty neat. First he starts echoing the horn, and that's really cool. And he's a light little brush there. Again, I'm trying to sing here so that it doesn't get taken down by YouTube. So we gotta keep talking during this cool shit, which kind of annoys me. But watch what it does here now. That's it. That's funky. It's badass. It's spatial. It's early rhythm and blues. It's got rock and roll to it. It's got the blues in it, and it's jazz. It's really an amazing culmination of all 4 sounds at one time. Pretty amazing song. It's called Shadow Dancers. I can't recall who wrote it, but it's a fantastic song. Holloway's great on it. Just brings some real soulful gut bucket gospel sax to the track. The rhythm section here is Ronnie Boykins, Montego Joe, and Jack McDuff's on the piano or the organ. That's the organ there, McDuff. Fantastic George Benson. Definitely need to check this one out. So I was in my bathtub the other day, just relaxing. I got Pandora on, playing some Bill Evans Trio. Some cool stuff's popping up. Most of it I'm familiar with. Stuff like Johnny Hartman, John Coltrane comes on. Like it's a nice little ballad kind of, mostly piano trio kind of stuff. A track came on. I was in the bathtub, and I'm like, "Oh my, what is this?" And I had to think. And it has horns on it, which kind of threw me for a loop a little bit. I'm like, because most of his stuff, you know, that's what's going on. Okay, what's going on? And I'm in the tub, and I'm like, ooh, some Ben Webster. It's got this natural vibrato on him. I'm like, who is this? And I sat there thinking for a minute, and I knew Bill, and I'm like, this doesn't sound like anything he did on Verve, so it's probably Riverside. But I'm like, what record did he do with a sax player? I knew the Freddie Hubbard Interplays record. I was like, so I'm kind of reaching, and I finally had my wife bring me my phone in the bathtub so I could see what was playing. And it turned out it was this Bill Evans Interplay Sessions, which was released on Milestone in probably the 80s. He says 82, which is Orrin Keepnews, who was, of course, one of the main guys at Riverside. And they repackage it with some tracks with Zoot Sims. Zoot Sims, Jim Hall, Ron Carter, and Philly Joe Jones make up the 7 unissued tracks on the second record, and they're all great, including some pretty modern, kind of out there stuff. But this ballad was, like I said, he's channeling Ben Webster. It's just breathy and dreamy, and Evans is just Jim Hall. Evans, Hall, and Zoot are all just doing fantastic dreamscape lullabies. You know, you're putting all your pet dolls to sleep with this enchanting stuff. Again, there's a darkness to Evans that few white cats can rival. He's got some spirits and some ghosts from his childhood and just his experiences that gives him his darkness. And Zoot is actually one of the great white sax players that gets little credit from collectors today. He earned the respect of the brothers and the industry and the charts and the polls. He was a big name in the 50s and into the 60s, and his records go for next to nothing today. And I think that's really weird. He's one of the greats, along with Al Cohn, Stan Getz, Jerry Mulligan. For the white sax players, he should be getting the same kind of money, to me, that Chet Baker, Bill Evans, and Stan Getz pulled out. But Zoot Sims records don't go for much. Al Cohn records don't go for much. Partly because they're not as hard to find. A lot of that stuff was on pretty decent distributed labels, so there's just more pressings of it out there. Versus Bill Evans' Riversides, which I have once read that Bill Evans' first record on Riverside shipped 200 copies in the first year. And so when you're Zoot Sims on some bigger label, RCA or whatever the heck you got, those records sold pretty well, which keeps the demand down, which makes the collectors think they don't have any value. It's such a strange mentality that if it's not going for $200 somewhere, it can't be any good. It's a bit like acting like you can't get a good meal for $5, $10. Gotta spend $100 for it to be any good. You can get great meals for $5, $10. You can. You just gotta know where to go, who's making it, what the ingredients are. It could be done. You don't gotta spend $80 to have it be a good meal. In fact, some of the meals I spent the most money on, I didn't enjoy as much as some places I went. There were nice little organic kitchens that whipped something up for $12. So price isn't always an indicator of quality. It's the same thing with jazz. Price don't always mean shit. It might mean it's rare, but 2 people could drive the cost of a record up that they were only 3 people looking for. That ain't the same as a record that's got hundreds of copies out there, and it's just a pet peeve of mine. I kind of talked about this in my last episode, but it's worth another play here, because here comes Don Byas, a guy who was in Europe for a long time. Some of it has strings, some of it has real jazz behind it, but listen to the man's sorrow here. I just grabbed me by the throat. I need to be in this episode for those who missed it. It starts really mellow with like either a low flute or maybe a bass flute or something. Beautiful. Then the strings come in there softly, and it's the beginning of a Disney film. There's animals skirting about with big, blushy, blinky eyes. It's dreamy. And then see what I'm saying? It suddenly has this reality to it, a darkness, the other side of the coin. You had all this light, fluffy animals of flower patches, and I came in with this rain cloud and said, I'm going to counter that with this, my sorrow, my longing, my missing home, my missing my black community. And it's, again, a record you can get for $5, $10. I seen one yesterday for $5 somewhere on Discogs. It's worth buying. It's got tons of soul, tons of gut, tons of spirit, by a guy that most American collectors have sadly forgotten today. I'll move on because I covered him last episode, but it had to be part of this episode. For those who just watched Throat Grabbers, it's in there now for y'all. Last thing I want to show you is a fun record. This is Lucy Reed. It's on Fantasy from 1957. How cool is that? She's interesting. She's beautiful, but she's also got kind of an artsy not afraid to put herself out there. She's a cool, what I want to call contra alto voice. I'm not positive on that, but it doesn't seem like a pure alto. She seems to have a bit more body and depth. I don't think you'd call her a tenor, but she has this, like I said, she hits some lower notes with a amount of breath and push that really has a power to it. Gil Evans produced half the tracks on this record of Miles Davis fame, Birth of the Cool. This is before Kinda Blue, before Sketches of Spain. This is 57. Gil wasn't on Kinda Blue. I'm just giving you the time frame, 57. There's some cool stuff on here. George Russell arranges some of it. Another guy, something English. I saw Jack English and Eddie Higgins, the piano player, arranged a couple tracks as well. So there's probably 3 different sessions on here, but it's a promo copy. It's the cool red vinyl. She's got some blues, some guts. There's a melancholy to her. White jazz singers can make a session real poppy in spite of its players. But great white jazz singers can make any music sound bluesy and heavy. And she's got something to her that I just like. It took me a long time to find this, believe it or not. I don't search for fantasy as often as I do some of the labels, but they're taking an interesting approach on this. It's not just a traditional rendition. It has some interesting movement going on. So, Lucy Reed, keep an eye out for that. The Don Byas, definitely don't pass it up if you have the chance to get it. So that's my session today. Hope you enjoyed these throat grabbers. The Bill Evans, that's that quintessence stuff. It's fantastic. And the track that I played from the Bill Evans was There Came You. And so it's important to have those title names as well. So check that out. Y'all be safe. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.